All right, so today we're in Adobe Bridge and we're going to be messing with this image right here. So first off, we're going to select our image. We're going to go to File, Open in Camera Raw. Also, what you can do is you can right click your image and go into Open Camera Raw. So we've got our image here. I've already done a few edits to it. So right here, if you want to see what the original looks like, that's what the original looks like. And then I can go back to the edited version. So I just did some global editing, which is all the stuff here. So you got our exposure, contrast, all that, color, stuff like that. But for the majority of this, we're going to be in the mask section, which is this section right here. So we've got a few options right here. We've got subject, sky, and background. You can also select objects, use a brush, linear gradient, radial gradient, and then there's also this nice feature down here which some images have where it'll have the people already in their own section that you can mess with. So like for all people, it'll have it, so this red right here, it'll show what's selected, and then sometimes it'll have individual people. So for the start of this, to make the people pop, I'm just gonna have all people selected. You can also mess with like facial skin, like certain sections here that it'll actually mask if you want to do more wider ranges of things. So we're just gonna have everything selected here, and then we're gonna go to create. So it makes a mask right here, and you'll see what is and isn't selected by the red. So everything in red is what's selected right here. And we can kind of see right here, it kind of missed a little bit, and a little bit there, stuff like that. So if we wanted to, we can go into add. So we got all these different selections here. So I'm going to use the brush tool. So we've got different size, feather. So we've got the size of the brush that'll affect how big or small it is. And then the feather will be how soft the separation is. So right here, I'm just going to do this, fill that in spot right there. So now that's filled in. So once we've got our subject selected how we want, we're going to go down here to our exposure and we can mess with that stuff. So for this image, I'm going to make the people here a little bit brighter, and I'm going to bump up the contrast a bit. That'll make them pop a little bit more off of the background. You can also mess with highlights, shadows, stuff like that. So you can see kind of what the slider does when you move it back and forth. So if you have way too much, it'll really blow out the subjects. Not enough, it'll kind of mess with that. And if you ever mess with these settings and you ever want to reset them, you can always double click on the arrow and it will reset the settings. So, but as you can see, kind of messing with it. For the most part, you don't want to go too extreme. So, because then it just doesn't look right. So, let's see. That's a decent start right there. So, then we can come down here to texture, clarity, dehaze, grain. For the most part, I like to add just a little bit of texture, not too much, because if you add too much, it looks a little uncanny sometimes. For this image, it's not too bad, but yeah. So, and then clarity really messes with that. So it really, if you go way down, it'll make everything really blurry, and if you go too far, it'll make everything look really like sharp and weird looking. But adding a little bit isn't bad. Definitely helps your subjects pop out when you want them to. Then we get also sharpness here, so that's kind of a similar effect as the clarity slider. Add a little bit. And then noise reduction and all these right here are for if you have a low lit subject. Sometimes if you get your image, it'll have these weird specks in it, and these like almost like a TV static style to it. And that you can always reduce with these sliders, but sometimes it'll make the quality a little more soft instead of sharp. But for the most part here, we've got a pretty good separation from the background where our subjects stand out. And if we wanted to, we can create another mask, and we can select objects if we wanted to. So if I wanted, say, this guy's helmet right here, that nice logo right there, if we wanted that to more stand out or pop, or if it was something we wanted to mess with, we can always up that, make it stand out a little more. And we can always add other things, or go back to our other one, remove stuff if we wanted to, like say if we wanted to remove that helmet, or say we wanted to only have these 3 people in the mask and separate this guy. We could do that if we wanted to. Now, another thing we can do is we can add a radial gradient or a linear gradient. So sometimes you want to do that to make the subjects look a little more natural in this scenario. So if they stand out too much or look a little out of place, a little cartoony, you can add a mask. So you can see that right there with the mask on it, it adds it to the mask section. See, but it won't be on the second mask because that's a separate mask. So you can add that. You can also add radial gradients as well. So that's kind of like, so you can kind of see it kind of adds another aspect to your image if you wanted it. Kind of draw your attention to the center of the frame. So that's kind of what the image looks like. So if you want to, we can remove this helmet, and we could always put that on its own separate layer. Select object, and it will grab it. See, it didn't do a perfect job, but that's all right. You can kind of come in here and mess with that. Kind of move that weird spot that it added. And we can also soften up this spot where it is on the grass, so it doesn't get that grass spot right there. And you can kind of up the contrast or the exposure, or it all depends on your image and what you're kind of wanting to go with. So, but for the most part, let's go with before, after. Definitely a little bit sharper, a lot more intensity to the image, makes it stand out a little bit more instead of more of a softer, neutral kind of all one tone. It kind of adds that separation between the background and the subjects. So that's how you get a nice image. You can really have your subjects be the main focus without having the background be so intense with it. And yeah, that's my video. Have fun.